Apartheid was a system of legal racial segregation enforced by the National Party government in South Africa from 1948 to 1994. The black Africans' rights meant nothing to the powerful white rulers. Let us learn more about the fall of apartheid.
The setting of apartheid was in South Africa from 1948 to 1994.
In the 1900s, South Africa was a European colony. South Africa had several natural resources that the Europeans wanted, so they came down and tried to force the Africans out. The South Africans were segregated and discriminated against by the Afrikaners, which were the white European settlers. They experienced one of the most horrible segregated times in all of history. The segregation gave the blacks a very unfair advantage because they couldn't get an education, own a business, live in a decent neighborhood, or have nice clothes or other materialistic things. The white people overtook the government and created laws that heavily segregated the black people.
There were two sides of apartheid, the white Afrikaner side and the black South African side, of course.
Oh, pardon my manners. The white Afrikaners in South Africa were very racist against the blacks and believed they could persecute them if they wanted to.
Hey, hello there. Now, the black Africans' point of view that suffered from apartheid was totally different from the white people that were ruling over them. Obviously, they did not want to be ruled over. They wanted rights, and the white people didn't care. So, yeah, I'm just gonna get back to what I'm doing.
The majority of the population of South Africa knew that apartheid was bad. One man said,
Today, the majority of South Africans, blacks and whites, recognize that apartheid has no future. It has to be ended by our own decisive mass action in order to build peace and security. The mass campaign of defiance and other actions of our organization. Nelson Mandela.
The issue of apartheid caused many people to protest, and thus many people died.
One terrible crisis was when the blacks refused to carry out their passes in 1960. These passes were similar to passports. They allowed blacks specific rights. During the crisis, 69 people died and 187 people were injured. This was known as the Sharpeville Massacre.
there are many protesters in apartheid history, but the most famous one was Nelson Mandela. Mandela led many protests against apartheid. He was charged with sabotage along with other small crimes and imprisoned.
Nelson Mandela was in prison for 27 years and he was released in 1990. Nelson Mandela led the African National Congress to power over apartheid. Mandela became the first black president of South Africa.
Although apartheid ended, the effects were still apparent. During apartheid, blacks were on little or no pay at all. Many blacks decided to not work, and since 3/4 of South African population was black, whites could not get enough people to work for them. Mandela had a lot of work to do with the troubled economy.
Together we have traveled a long road to where we are today. This has been a road of struggle against colonial and apartheid oppression. Tabio Mabek. Apartheid has affected politics because every post-apartheid president in South Africa has been black.
South Africa's culture has been permanently affected now that whites and blacks are equal. Apartheid has affected the world's economy because the two wealthiest countries in the world, the United States and Japan, are also South Africa's biggest markets. When apartheid was ruling South Africa, these markets were affected negatively. Therefore, both economies, the United States and Japan, were affected negatively. This is how apartheid has affected the world's economy.
Apartheid has affected the world's politics too.
Since all of South Africa's post-apartheid presidents have been black, some believe that this has influenced Obama's election.
Apartheid has affected the world's culture because many people know about it. Listen to these quotes. I didn't actually realize what apartheid meant. I'm probably a bit naive, but I thought it was more of a vague segregation, like on the beaches and buses. John Deacon. Mumbling obeisance to abhorrence of apartheid is like those lapsed believers who cross themselves when entering the church. Nadine Gordimer.
Apartheid has also influenced many movies and books.